There's something wrong with the kids on Fifth and Pallid Street. First of all, they buy the coffee pops. Who the hell buys coffee pops? I've been driving this ice cream truck for 5 months now, and I still don't understand why Brittany and the guys at the refrigeration center keep loading those 2 boxes into the truck every morning. Not even the parents like that stuff. I've tried it. It's terrible. It's like frozen milk with the vague scent of that instant coffee mix they had by the water cooler when I was stationed in Korea. But these kids, they buy the coffee pops. What's even stranger, they only buy the coffee pops. I'll drive up with that ever so slightly annoying jingle whining from the speakers, and they'll come running from the front yards of those pristine white houses. Then each of them will buy a coffee pop and run along, holding it in their little hands. I asked one of them a while ago why they like the coffee pops. Dorothy, the sweet little girl with a blonde ponytail tied with a sparkling purple ribbon. "It's 'cause the adults like it," she giggled. "Coffee's an adult flavor." I smiled with some sort of bittersweet adoration, because what little kid doesn't want to grow up and be an adult already? By the time you realize your youth is a priceless thing, it's already halfway gone. Here's the thing. These kids make me smile. I'm a Navy vet with 8 years of service under my belt, driving a goddamn pink ice cream truck through the same suburban neighborhoods every day. By all means, I should be cursing the government, or God, but these kids keep me sane. They call me Mr. B and do that giggle we all lose when we hit puberty. They help keep that hopelessness of my life in steep decline at bay. I'm going off track, though. Secondly, I've never seen their parents. I don't think I've seen a single parent playing with the kids scattered across the front yards in this place, or even a caretaker to hold their hand as they trade their crumpled dollar bills for their beloved coffee pops and gleefully skip home. There are 7 houses by the intersection between 5th and Pallid Street. I have a soft spot for this whole area because I used to visit Min Soo here when we both got discharged in Korea and moved to the States to look for jobs and families. Min Soo looked frailer than he actually was, and was so lactose intolerant that the powdered milk in that instant coffee stuff would make him shit his brains out. He was also smart. Worked as a technician for 2 years on some secret military project he wasn't allowed to tell me about. They did some fancy tests for cell mutations or harmful radiation before he was allowed to leave. Even went so far as to test his sperm, citing something about possible birth defects. I assumed he dealt with atom bombs, but one time while we were drunk, he said it was something much, much scarier than that. After he became a civilian, Min Soo got a job refurbishing sleek new computers. He bought that house on the intersection with the blue door and lived there for a good while with his beautiful new wife, who had a button nose just like him. I should have been jealous of him, but I wasn't. Min Soo was a nice guy. I don't even blame him for moving away without saying goodbye. He's probably in some rich retirement village now. Sometimes I wonder what he's up to. Anyway, that house now belongs to Dave and his family, and as with all the other kids, I haven't seen Dave's parents to get a chance to know them. And sometimes... That brings me to my third point, actually. Sometimes they'll switch houses. The kids, I mean, like I think Dorothy's house is the one with the tacky fake chimney, but every so often she'll go to the house next to that, and Enrico will go to Dorothy's house. It looks like the doors are always unlocked because they never seem to bother with keys. After I first became aware of the house switching, I can't stop noticing how often they do it. Finney and Ben switch houses almost every other day. Dave always goes to the house with the blue door, but sometimes he'll take Sarah with him. Kate goes all over the place. To this day, I don't know which house is supposed to be Kate's. Sometimes she goes with one of the other kids, and sometimes she just walks off and disappears down the block. That concerns me a little. I really want to ask about it, but I don't want these kids' parents to think of me as the creepy old guy in the neighborhood. So I don't. The only house that doesn't get touched is the one on the right of the house with the blue door. There's a big for sale sign on the lawn, so I think it's vacant. So life goes on like that. And one day, just like any other, I'm handing out coffee pops to these kids. There's 8 of them. Dorothy, Enrico, Dave, Finney, Ben, Sarah, Kate, Elliot. Elliot's a tall, quiet kid, probably the oldest of them all, though he still can't be much older than 10. He's got this red birthmark on his cheek and a mildly troubled look in his eyes. Always. Anyway, Elliot comes up to the truck and hands me $2 for his coffee pop. I give it to him, and just as he's turning away, I notice the hoodie he's wearing has a weird pattern on it I'd never seen before. "Hey," I say. "Nice shirt." He turns back to me and just sort of stares at me. Then he nods. "Dorothy's mom made it for me," he says. "She does embroidery." "That's awesome. What does it say?" He looks down at the dirty, cream-colored fabric with crisscrossing black stitches on it. The patterns are incredibly detailed, with lines, checkers, spirals, flowers, and bits of knotted thread that look like polka dots. Embroidered across the chest are 5 tiny little letters. M-O-R-S-E, Elliot says, struggling a little to read the letters upside down. Morse. When I was in the Navy, they still bothered to teach us Morse code, in case we needed to communicate through signal lamps in radio silence. They got rid of most of the training classes by 2010. It was an inefficient and obsolete mode of coded communication. Still, I know how the dots and dashes make up letters of the alphabet. And as soon as I read the word Morse, I realized the little lines and knots on Elliot's shirt, hidden in between the pretty floral patterns and spirals, actually spell out words. Help. 1106 Fifth. I read it twice over. A chill goes down my back, unrelated to the ice cream cooler that's half open before me. I look at the houses by the intersection. Then Elliot's staring at me, so I quickly look down and fish out another coffee pop. Elliot leaves, and Sarah comes up to hand me her $2. When they're all done and gone back to their houses, I look over the houses again. I read the numbers painted above the doors until I find 1106. It's the house with the blue door. Dave's house. The one Min Soo used to live in. I stare at it for a long while. That night, I have trouble sleeping. I try to convince myself it's nothing, but the Morse code was deliberate. I'm sure of it. How could someone accidentally embroider the address of a neighbor's house on a kid's shirt? The next day, I drive my car to Fifth and Pallid late in the afternoon. I knock on the house with the blue door, and Dave answers. "Hi, Mr. B," he says, smiling wide. "What are you doing here?" "Hey, kid. Are your parents home?" "Yeah. Want to see 'em?" Something about the way he says that doesn't sit right with me. I look over Dave's head into the house. I can't see much past the entryway and a slice of living room, but the house is trashed. Dirty plates and plush toys lie about on the floor. I wrinkle my nose. Can they come out? I want to have a quick chat with them. Dave seems to think for a little bit, hands behind his back and his toe tapping on the dirt-stained floor. "No," he finally says. "You're going to have to come in and see him." There's a bit of noise somewhere in the house, like stuff clattering to the floor. I'm suddenly a little bit nervous. "How come?" "They're in the basement." Of course they've got to be in the goddamn basement. Before I know it, I've entered the house and Dave's leading me down the hallway. The place used to be pristine while Min Soo lived here. He and his wife even bothered to put up a fresh coat of white paint over the walls and windowsills and install a new kitchenette. Now it's a complete mess. There's a broken wine glass on the greasy marble counter. Kids' clothes are strewn about the floor. There are weird stains on the walls and this awful smell that just keeps getting worse with every step. It smells like shit. Literally, it does. Like no one's bothered to clean the bathroom in 2 years. Dave opens the door to the basement, and the sheer intensity of the smell hits me like a brick wall. I try to keep myself from gagging, and at the same time, I hear voices coming from downstairs.
But I thought I was Mrs. Brown today. No, you were Mrs. Brown on Saturday. I get to be Mrs. Brown today. You're the laundry lady. But I want to walk Pooch.
At this point, I'm following a few paces behind Dave because the smell's making my eyes water, and honestly, I'm afraid of what I'm going to see. When we're about halfway down and the top of the doorway below us is just about eye level, I realize it smells like something else, too. It smells a little like that cheap coffee mix. And then we're in the basement, and I wish I could be in hell instead. It's a makeshift children's paradise. A sizable room with plastic playpens shaped like houses and cardboard boxes cut out to look like the fronts of stores. There's costumes and fake foods and shiny toy purses piled up in the corner. All the kids on Fifth and Pallid Street are there, chattering, dressed up like mommies and daddies. Dorothy's dressed like a maid. Elliot's wearing a reflective orange vest and holding a little corn broom. Then, there are the adults. Dirty and pale and shriveled to their bones. They sit with blank looks on their faces in the plastic houses, with tea sets and dolls in their hands. There's a man and a woman who look just like Dave rocking back and forth in a playpen, clutching a dirty tablecloth between them. There's a lady who looks a little bit like Ben, who looks at me with sunken eyes before grinning wide. All her teeth are rotted. There's a man who's tall, with curly hair just like Elliot. He's wearing a cartoon print shirt 2 sizes too small for him. His face and neck are bruised, like he's been beaten. There's a couple more strangers, but I can't bear to look at them long enough to figure out who their kids might be. The blonde lady at the cardboard storefront labeled Clothes Shop stares at me with blank despair. The floor here is sticky. As I stare at the kids, dressed like adults, and their parents dressed like kids, Kate squeals in excitement.
Look, Mr. B's here!
The kids all turn to look at me. For a second, I try to decide between calling the police right away and running up the stairs and out the house as fast as I can. But then, I notice the people sitting in the back corner of the basement. They're kids, a girl and a boy, about the same age as all the other kids, but I don't recognize them. Even though they have this vaguely unsettling familiarity about them, I'm sure I've never seen them before. Because if I have, I'm sure I would have remembered every terrible detail of their faces. To start out, their faces are white as chalk. I'm not making up some half-assed metaphor. They're literally white like chalk. Blue-purple veins crawl down their cheeks. Red in some places, but mostly blue and purple. Their eyes are black as pitch, and the girl has long, straight hair that's also black. The boy is bald. His head is the same white, veiny skin as their faces. They're sitting in little wooden chairs that are decorated with gold streamers and glitter to look like thrones. The boy sits there like a statue with his black eyes and his cavernous mouth wide open, staring straight forward. But the girl follows me with her eyes. And if that wasn't bad enough, there's a man curled up in the corner who's shaking like he's crying. I can't exactly tell, but I'm glad he's got his back turned toward me because he's butt naked. He must be where the rancid smell is coming from, because there are a couple of those potty pads for dogs laid out underneath him that are all soiled. A palm-sized patch on his lower back is the same glistening, veiny white as the kid's, and he's got a glittering purple ribbon tied around his neck. Dorothy, goddamn sweet little Dorothy, is holding the end of it like a leash and running her hand through the man's mess of black hair.
Mr. B, she says, do you want to play with us too?
What is all this?
It's our secret hideout, she exclaims. I'm Mrs. Brown today, and Finney is Mr. Brown. That means we get to walk Pooch today.
She tugs at the glittering purple ribbon, and the man sniffles.
Pooch is our dog because he poos and pees everywhere. He's a bad doggy, but we love him. Don't we, Pooch?
The man whimpers. Not like a dog, like a broken person. I'm calling the police, I mutter, taking out my phone and starting to back up the stairs. Dave turns to me and pouts.
Aw, Mr. B, I thought you'd want to play with us.
I dial 911, but there's no signal down here. I start to inch up the steps, and all the kids are looking at me. The scariest part is that they still look like kids, with innocent smiles and genuine disappointment that the ice cream man isn't joining in their games. That, and how the empty-eyed parents neither tell me what's going on, nor call for help.
That's okay,
Dave says.
Senna will make you want to play.
All eyes move to the chalk-white girl in the back. At this point, my brain goes, fuck this shit, and I turn around and start running up the stairs. Behind me, there's a clattering noise like a chair falling over, and then the pounding of bare feet on hardwood that move way too quickly toward me. I don't have the chance to get halfway up the stairs before cold hands grab me by the throat. Their tiny fingers are so strong, my mind does a double take. There's no way this little girl has this much grip strength. Then I'm yanked backwards, and I see the ceiling, and then I must have hit my head on something because there's a jolt of pain and a flash in my eyes. And then everything goes black. I've been stuck in this basement for 2 weeks now. The chalk-white girl's name is Senna, and the boy is Martin. They are the queen and king of this place. Try to act up, and Senna will put you down. If you've seen those hour-long wildlife documentaries, she moves sort of like one of those panthers, or like a snake, except she stands on 2 legs. Bites just as hard. I still don't know what Martin's deal is. He never moves from that statue-like state with his eyes and mouth wide open, like black holes. I've never seen that expression change, never seen him blink. Come to think of it, I'm not even sure if he's alive. There's no signal and no internet down here, but for the first couple of days I still hold on to the thought that someone would come looking for me. Sure, I'm an ice cream man who's of no use to the greater good of the country anymore, but surely somebody must notice I've gone missing, with my car parked on the curb just outside 1106 Fifth Street. Nobody comes. The kids feed us coffee pops. They bring them down from their stash upstairs, unwrap the plastic, and whoever's decided to take the role of the restaurant manager that day takes out a set of plastic cutlery. They have a blast cutting up the popsicle in different shapes. Sometimes little discs like steak, sometimes shaven flakes like rice. Then, whoever's in the role of Mrs. Brown claps her hands and sings songs for her 8 children to come and eat. And we scoop the half-melted popsicle pieces with our plastic spoons and eat. Before long, my tongue is bleeding, and sitting up makes me dizzy. I'd give anything to eat anything other than the goddamn coffee pops. Sometimes I wonder what the kids will do when they run out, since, the ice cream man is gone. But they must have quite the stockpile, because they keep bringing them out. I don't know what caused these kids to band together against their parents, but at this point I don't care. Not all the kids' parents are here, but a lot of them are. Dorothy's mom is the only one who's still sort of sane. She plays the role of the seamstress's daughter, and her thumb is all scarred from the countless times she's pricked herself with the needle. I whisper to her that I'm sorry I couldn't rescue her, and she says it's okay with a slightly pained expression. Elliot beats us with the broom sometimes. Usually it's his dad who gets the worst of it, but sometimes it's all of us. Aside from how he screams about the lot of us being worthless fucking kids, it's not that painful. He's 10 years old. Pooch, the naked man with the ribbon around his neck, never goes on a walk around the little cardboard town, no matter how much the kids tug on his leash. He sniffles, curled up in the corner, and never turns to face us. The kids give him coffee pop pieces in a plastic doggy bowl, and he doesn't eat it until it's become soup. Then he laps up that soup and moans in pain and shits it all out onto his potty pads. There's a sinking feeling I get when I think too hard about it. I turn my attention to the chalk-white kids instead, but that just makes the feeling worse. There's a reason why their horrifying faces feel so familiar. Their little round button noses, and the girls' black hair, and the way their clothes hang off their small frames, making them look frailer than they actually are. Their white, veiny skin that looks just like the white, veiny patch on Pooch's back. I wonder if the kids are lactose intolerant like their dad. I give my power bank to Dorothy's mom and she charges her long-dead phone. We power it up with a tiny, fluttering bit of hope, but her signal's no better than mine. She gets caught trying to use her phone during dinner time. Senna takes it and breaks it in half. The kids take away her bathroom privileges for a day. I whisper to Pooch one night after the kids are asleep about the stupid shit I used to do with an old friend of mine in Korea. His quiet sobs grow just a little quieter, and he shakes a little bit less. Still doesn't turn around to look at me, though. Honestly, I don't blame him. I'm a little scared to see his face, too. One day we start to hear construction noises, almost inaudible in the basement, but it's there. Late at night, when the kids go upstairs to go to sleep, I power up my phone with the last bit of charge I saved. The signal is still non-existent, but there's a new Wi-Fi network, 1108 home. It's got 2 bars and no password. If you see this, please help. We're in the basement of 1106 Fifth Street.